What's up, guys? In this video I'm going to show you guys the top 5 checkmates that every beginner should know in chess. But before I get into that, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more great chess videos. So this one is definitely the most common checkmate, especially in online chess when you're trying to flag, when you're about to get flagged. You make a bunch of queens, you get this. Just take off those last 2 rows, the rook roller, even the queen and rook roller, the ladder checkmate. That's basically this. All you got to do is go row by row, boom, boom, boom. And then here, the checkmate, pretty clear, is just rook over here. Because the queen takes off this row, so the rook will take off this row. And that will be checkmate. So this one, same kind of idea. This is just a little bit less progressed. So you're going to go rook check, rook check, rook check, and rook check. You alternate rooks going down the file. And remember, don't switch the alternating because then he can come back. You always want to push him back a row, back a row, back a row, back a row. And once you get this down, you will. This is definitely the easiest one to do. So this next checkmate is just the in-your-face checkmate. Whenever you put basically the queen or another piece right in the king's face. And we'll come back to more variations of this. But for example, this one, we would just go queen here, checkmate. You can also go queen back, any of the back row checkmate. But as a beginner, just put it right in their face. Queen here, check. You got the king support. Clearly the king can't go anywhere, and that is checkmate. So this one, very similar. King's over here, queen's over here. Especially as a beginner, when you have the queen, that's going to be your number one checkmating kind of piece. Even for, people who are much better, or me, or people like that, we definitely use the queen a lot to checkmate. But you'll see a more variation at the higher level. But at the beginner level, look for your queen and look for their king, and think, how do I put them right around that area? So here for this position, we just go queen here, checkmate. The bishop supporting, so the king cannot take, and that's probably going to take us very soon to the helper checkmate. So this one, another pattern that you'll see a lot when you have a queen and pawn, and this king is kind of trapped like this. Here, just queen g7, checkmate. And now the next one. This one's a very common one for anyone who's done or does Puzzle Rush. The first 1, 2, 3 are always kind of this idea. So back rank checkmate. The king is back here, and I coached at some schools, and I would see this is one of the biggest comeback checkmates of all time, where like someone's getting destroyed, there's pieces everywhere, and then he forgets about his back row, and it's like boom, rook here, checkmate. The king has nowhere to go, and a very common way to avoid this is just push the h6 pawn, or sometimes even the g6 pawn. But I would really recommend just push the h6 pawn up one square. That way your king has some room to breathe, and then now there's no back rank checkmate. Some more variations. This one kind of going with the last thing I just said. It looks like your king has space to go, but the bishop is covering this escape route. So now white's move rook d8 is once again checkmate. Okay, so now this one, it looks like his back row is covered. Funny enough, we could just take the rook. But instead of taking the rook in this position, we're going to go rook to d8 checkmate. We're going to use this rook back here, and if he takes, we just take, and that's back rank checkmate. Okay, so let's keep going. So this one looks kind of tricky, and at first you're like, oh, back rank. I can get back over here, but he's got a lot of squares covered. So this one is the helper checkmate, or like the sniper checkmate. I remember I taught at the school, and this kid named Karan, he was the king at this. He would keep setting up these checkmates, and the kids would start just like panicking. They'd be like, any move I could get checkmated. It was like watching like a very high level UFC fight with heavyweights, where it's like any punch could be the last punch. But for me, it was pretty clear where that punch was loading up front. So we got this bishop and this queen lined up. And whenever you see this lined up to the king, there's going to be a lot of threats. So here, with the bishop and queen supporting each other, we go queen takes pawn checkmate. Very similar to the in-your-face checkmate, but this one's just coming from more far away. So queen takes pawn would be checkmate here. Now this one, similar idea. We have these two bishops and this queen lined up. Now what could you do here? You could pause if you want, but just queen takes pawn, checkmate, supported by the bishop. Okay, another example of this. So you're going to see this pattern a lot, this bishop and queen. Definitely look for it. Even if it's not checkmate, a lot of times it is still a good move, because if he pushes one of these pawns, it kind of makes a weakness in his position. And now, the last one. Whenever the king is cornered, whenever the king is surrounded, this is when you see a lot of checkmates. If you want a name for it, it's like cornered king checkmate, or like the king surrounded. The specific one is a smothered mate, and there's a lot of like different sub names, but the idea is the same. This king is trapped in the corner, doesn't have any squares, so if white can give a check, it's gonna be mate. So here we're gonna go knight f7 check, and that would be checkmate, smothered mate. Now how do we set it up? This is a tactic all beginners definitely want to know, because it's one of the cool ones too, and you'll see it sometimes. So knight here check, king here, and then we go knight here check, double check. The knight and the queen are attacking the king. Whenever there's a double check, it means the king has to move. You cannot block a double check. Maybe there's some kind of weird situation where you can, but I don't think I've ever seen it. So knight check, king here, knight h6 check, king back. Then we go queen here check. He plays rook takes, and then knight here is checkmate. So I'll do one more time. Check, king here. Check. If king here, then queen right in the face is mate. So check, king here, double check, king here, and then put the queen right in the corner. He takes, and then knight f7 is checkmate. Awesome. Okay, so almost done. So this one, the king only has kind of one square to go to, and we got the two rooks on the 7th rank. So we go rook here check, king here, king has no squares, and we just go rook g7 and finish him off, and that's checkmate. Okay, so here, I think this one's called like Anastasia's mate. But you can see the king only has one kind of row to go to. The knight here covers both these squares. So all you got to do is give a check from the h file. So we go rook h3 check, and that would be checkmate because the king cannot go to either of these squares. So this one, also kind of similar. The king has no squares because the bishop is taking away this escape route. And this one I do see a lot, and this one's a really nice one to know. Sometimes you get some really crazy mates here. So here, the key is you got to open the h file, just like the last one, and you use the knight. So you go knight here check. He takes, he has to take because it's check, and he can't go here. So knight check, pawn takes, and then rook h3 is just checkmate. There's nothing that he can do. Okay, so this one, and I think this one might be like Morphe's mate or one of those, but very similar to the other ones. We have the king cut off, it has no squares, it's cornered, and then we just go bishop here check, and that is checkmate. Nothing you can block with, nothing you can do. So these are kind of the top 5 mates that everyone wants to know. Let me scroll through real fast. So we have the rook roller mate. This one, online chess, when you're low on time, always do this. We have the in-your-face mate. Whenever very similar to the helper and when your king is surrounded. We got back rank checkmate, a huge one for beginners. And then we have the helper mate, where 2 pieces lined up and they go for the kill around the king. And then we have basically the cornered king mate, or the king surrounded mate, however you want to call it. And this will lead to checkmate. Boom. And all these different examples of it. Smothered, covered. Think about Waffle House now. Anyway, so all these different checkmates. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're a beginner, this will definitely help you to find those finishes in your games, so you don't just win on time, or you don't just lose on time. Surround their king, bring pieces around their king, and that's when the checkmates will come up. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope you guys are entertained.